The dark web is a very, very dangerous place filled with lurking challenges and security problems.
The Darknet wasn't so dark at the beginning. It started becoming a murky place once cybercriminals realized that the anonymity provided by Darknet is good enough for cybercrime.
Cybercrime is just a small part of it. The actual usage is, as these gentlemen were saying, is for good stuff.
So we're back at the new edition of our podcast. This is Dan Berthe, your host, and I've got three fantastic guests with me here today, and I'm going to start by asking them to talk about themselves a little bit, and then we'll go and discuss a little bit more about their Darknet. And of course, yeah, we'll have Silvio, by all means. How are you?
Silvio.
What do you do?
Nice to meet you, fabulous guys. I'm the director for the Investigation and Forensics unit. I'm in charge of the technologies we're building to keep up with hackers. So I'm thrilled to talk about the Darknet and the dark side of cybersecurity. Hopefully we'll have something interesting to discuss here. Over to you. I think your name is Bob.
Yeah, that's correct. Hi, I'm Bob. I've been with Bitdefender for the past 17 years. I'm a director of threat research, and I'm responsible for the vulnerability assessment program in Bitdefender. And I'm working with these great people on anti-ransomware projects.
So we already know Catalin. Thanks for coming back.
Again.
Again. That's what happens when you've been with the company for how many years? 20
plus.
20 plus. All right, so everybody's a veteran here, and everybody has cool stories. So I'm going to ask something stupid. You know, what is the Darknet, dark web, whatever you call it?
Right. See, it depends on how you look at it, from which angle. If you're a cybersecurity expert, then the dark web is a very, very dangerous place filled with lurking challenges and security problems. But other than that, regular people can use it for legitimate uses. And I'm really
Such as?
Looking forward to talking about legitimate uses for the Darknet.
Yeah, because the Darknet wasn't so dark at the beginning. It started becoming a murky place once cybercriminals realized that the anonymity provided by Darknet is good enough for cybercrime.
Okay, so you make a good point, right? So for those of us,
At the beginning, there was light.
Those of us who don't, let's assume there's still questions about, what it is and what it entails. So it started off as a privacy project, right? And that's the human quest that's always been there to try to achieve as much privacy as possible, because it's a human need, not necessarily that we're trying to hide something that's illicit, but it's just something that we crave instinctively, right? So my question here is to you as professionals: why is it such a big deal in our work? Why do we get involved in this space? And what is it that Bitdefender does special or different than other companies?
Well, first of all, from the Darknet, you can get real-time intelligence from the cybercrime sector. It's in the Darknet where they operate most of their work, although in private messages and stuff you don't really see, but at some point they have to do some advertisement. As a cybercriminal gang, you have to advertise your services somewhere. And the Darknet is where they do that, because it's really hard to find them and pinpoint on the map. Because that's the thing we need to really make clear here, is that on Darknet helps you cover your tracks very well. You get full privacy, as Bob was saying. But these cybercrime groups, they're using it for nefarious factors. So other than that, you have the forums, which are like a learning platform. Like, people are getting on the forums to learn how to become maybe a cyber criminal.
What forums?
I don't know. Famous ones right now are XSS and Exploit. These are some big forums where people get in, but I don't want to promote them. People are also discussing important topics there, not just cybercrime. But
so I want you guys to bring it, clear it for me a little bit. What's the dimension? So most people, if you talk to, they'll be aware of, the phenomena, the technology, potential use cases in, the thoughts of the knowledge of the cybercrime that's associated with the space. But what I want to know is the prevalence. Yeah, of course, you guys work with the space every day, but some people have never opened Tor, or they don't really know how this stuff works. So walk me through understanding how, big a phenomenon is, how many people are involved, or just give me a sense of, how big this tool is in general.
You want to take a shot at this, or do you want me to go on?
I don't need specifics. So give me some understanding of how big of a.
You have close to 1 million people using it daily, but I'll double check that by the end of our podcast, and
Sounds great.
we'll see exact
For
numbers.
both
if you want.
legitimate and potentially illegitimate uses.
legitimate and
Right.
illegitimate usage. But again, people are using the Tor network and the Tor browser to hide away, or maybe get away from the governments, let's say. You have top users which are based in Russia trying to read the actual news, or people being based in other oppressive regimes where they need to get to actual information. They are using the Tor network, the Tor browser, to open that content, which is otherwise unreadable by them.
Funny thing is that, there are a lot of people risking their lives trying to access the darknet to get informed, to stay up to date, to bypass censorship. And in the Western countries, or in what we call full democracies, people are abusing that for doing bad things like cybercrime, like hosting illegal files, like selling all sorts of products and services that should be deemed illegal.
At one point in time, I was having a conversation with a police officer. It was, over a coffee, so nothing spectacular. And one of the questions he asked, like, Katalin, if there's so much drugs and bad things that happen on the darknet, why don't we just close it? Like put it down. And the main reason is that cybercrime is just the small part of it. The actual usage is, as this gentleman was saying, it's for good stuff.
2 million.
2 million people.
2 million. And cybercrime, it's obviously a part of it, but it's not that high compared to all the good use cases that this allows you to do. And it's not only started as a privacy mechanism, this was actually a military project. And it was allowing troops, soldiers, or spies to communicate with the back office in a safe manner. And then it became open source, and then it was offered to civilians.
Is it still used for that?
Yes, actually yes, and journalists all over the place are using the darknet to get in touch with whistleblowers, with people who want to break news while still preserving anonymity. Because one thing that the darknet is good at is making sure that the two parties never know each other's location, and that's the nice thing about Tor, and that's also one of the key selling points for cybercrime. If you could preserve anonymity in between parties who are freely talking across the traditional internet, that would be ultimately abused by crime. And every large newspaper in the world has a dedicated Tor channel for safe communication, for anonymous file sharing. For instance, if you want to send specific files without your government or your employer or your supervisor knowing that you have done that.
Even Facebook shares an onion page where you can reach Facebook via the darknet if your country doesn't allow you to reach Facebook otherwise. And with regards to whistleblowing, if you have interesting videos of unidentified flying objects in the air, like it's a big debate right now, you can just put them online via the darknet. So nobody knows who you actually are when you post those stuff online.
I'd like us to go a little deeper into some of the work that we've done trying to curb the crime around the space. But what's the craziest thing that you've personally seen?
Oh no.
No. Oh, okay, so hold on. No, I mean, not in that sense, not the gruesome stuff, but like let's say fun stuff maybe. Is there anything that you're like, oh, this was funny?
Yeah, I found out how much the life of my CTO is worth, because you see there's these assassin hiring services, and you find out how much it's worth to get rid of your superior management, upper management.
So there's the lore around these things, and people talk about how this is
Nobody knows if those things are real or not, but there's been people that were ordering hits, and sometimes it's just a scam.
Right.
Sometimes you're ordering a hit from a law enforcement guy just doing undercover work.
I mean, I imagine you're not gonna hire an assassin there, and if they if you get screwed, you're gonna call the cops and be like, hey, this guy in the darknet. It's not gonna, right? You're not gonna get any support with that.
There was a case in China where 4 people were arrested. So what happened was that somebody went to this hidden servers and ordered a hit on somebody. Doesn't matter who. This person took the money and hired somebody else to do it, and the other one hired somebody else to do it. So four.
Subcontracting cybercrime.
Did somebody do it?
No, and they were all four arrested. So
you know what? At the end, you're going to find out somebody who's willing to do it for like pennies,
Right.
and probably they will fail so spectacularly that they will be exposing the entire operation. But we're talking about the weird stuff here. Probably one of the most exciting ways to look at the dark markets is looking for exotic stuff that you can buy. I was running up a couple of research projects with Catalin roughly around Christmas shopping spree to see what kind of discounts these markets are offering and what kind of goods and services you can buy.
Do they have a Black Friday?
yes,
Of course. They do. And one of the things that looked like weird to me is that people were selling javelins. Right? These are
rocket launchers.
anti-tank missiles, right? That you could buy for like $70,000.
That's pretty cheap. I think
That's a
they're
big firework,
like
actually.
$250,000 or more, right?
Probably they're being stolen from warehouses or from various parts of the supply chain, and they end up into.
How do you get one of those shipped to you?
Probably by postal services, because they offer this kind of anonymity, not necessarily anonymity, but this kind of confidentiality of what's being shipped. Unless your package is flagged as suspicious, probably it will not be touched by the federal agents. I don't know how they ship inter-country, for instance, or on different other continents. I'm probably sure that there's a way for that with mules or you name it.
Maybe if you buy a submarine as well, and you have the submarine deliver those javelins as well with the sub.
Why not?
If you have the money,
I think depending on what you're buying. I mean, if you buy like drugs, nobody's going to buy big quantities like 1 kilo of cocaine, right?
Although they sell
They do sell
heroin in bulk, like
Yeah.
1 metric ton of heroin, that's available, right?
But
It's available
it's
online.
for consumers. Basically, they ship them like it's like an envelope within a magazine. If you buy guns or other stuff like that, those usually get shipped into other larger hardware, like splitting parts and put in a computer, for instance. Okay, and you receive a very cheap computer,
A lawnmower.
and inside
And
is
there's
a
like,
gun.
yeah.
No matter how you assemble it,
The old
still
jokes
ends
with
up
the
as a
machine gun,
gun.
yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So you know, obviously I know the horror stories. We're all aware of them, but I was curious if there's anything when you at some point working with the space, if you run into something that was surprising in a lighthearted way, not necessarily something grueling. But anyway, let's move on. I feel like what I'm trying to understand here is, so we've done significant amount of work, especially in the partnership with the law enforcement. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you might know some of these efforts, and I know how delicate they are most of the time, but I would like us to present our audience some of the things that we can share that they will find interesting, intriguing, and hopefully optimistic and promising as to how we solved crime or something.
Besides
Something that we can share.
Before going into what Bitdefender did or did not, if you want to look from an investigative perspective, we can talk about Silk Road, because that's full in the public domain. There's actually a book that describes absolutely every step of the investigation. It's called the American Kingpin. I recommend to everybody to read it. And basically you can see how the investigation started, how it progressed, and the minor details that were minor mistakes that the Ross did in order for him to get arrested. And the investigation actually started from somebody from the postal office who accidentally found one of those envelopes, and they started to actually build a case on that. And it was probably the first time that ever happened. I mean, Silk Road was the biggest market back then, and one of amongst the first. And it was initially started by this person called Ross Ulbricht, because he was a libertarian. He wanted to do with his body whatever he wanted. So he built this shop initially to sell things that he was all building, like mushrooms and stuff. And then other people said like, hey, why don't you use this as a platform and we can all sell here? And if you read the book, you're going to see, you know, all the things that happened throughout the existence of this market until it was shut down. The reason I brought the subject is that President just pardoned Ross, which was in prison for triple life sentence or something. Now he's gonna, if he's not already, he's gonna be free.
He was, yeah.
Yep.
There's pictures with him leaving. And it reminds me that Ross Ulrich, he actually, rumor has it, he wasn't convicted for it. He looked up assassin and hitman services for employees of his own company and stuff to get rid of people. But none of this was ever...
Yeah, I was curious, and I remember when we talked earlier, we were talking about hiring hitman. I believe I saw some interviews with him, and he said, "Oh no, it wasn't me. It was the other guy that was in charge." And I mean, there's no way to know. Who knows what was
but
that?
But still, I think his market is the first use of Bitcoin really as a transaction cryptocurrency.
Would you say it's true that he might be holding 500 million or whatever the number was in Bitcoin?
That's been seized by the FBI, so...
If I'm really rich, you'll see signs of it, right? So I guess he's gonna show some signs that he's really rich and maybe make some generous donations to politicians.
Yeah, so the thing that got him arrested was that he was using a particular way of writing certain words. And one police officer that was really into this case noticed that he looked at some posts from his early times as a criminal, compared them to what he noticed online on some particular forums, and he tied a knot, say, this could be that person. So that's just like a super minor mistake that got him arrested, because other than that, everything that he did was, you know, really making sure he stays private and anonymous.
Yeah, note to self, if you're planning to start a cybercrime business anytime in the future, make sure that you have no social media presence, because AI now can scrape everything and kind of behaviorally pinpoint you in different conversations that will be seized by the police later.
Yeah, think about AI in the darknet. I mean,
yeah, what
that's
about
a whole subject right there.
Let's talk about AI in the darknet. How's that?
Well, it can scrape everything automatically. Extract context from the text it has seen. Translate everything from Chinese, Russian, and difficult languages, let's say. It's easy to translate it now. Track some subjects from one forum to the other. Also, some users, you can track them from one forum to the other and make a profile for users. What I'm saying right now is something that is public, or people are already publicly publishing projects on this, so it's not really rocket science.
Of the things that are of cybersecurity interest in the dark web, are we talking about potentially the drug markets and ransomware? I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
More than that. So dark markets are, they're kind of exotic, so that's why it's a common recurring topic when it comes to the darknet. Then obviously ransomware, almost all ransomware families have their infrastructure protected by Tor, and working in the darknet. But then you're going to have the forums where people interact, both in terms of things that are legal but also illegal. So let's say they discuss about building an exploit. They found a vulnerability and they work together to write the code for the exploit. Then you're going to have the access brokers. We were discussing earlier about the access brokers. You go there, you see that somebody's selling access to a particular company. They tell you what security solution they have. They told you what's the revenue of that company, the country. And you, if you're a ransomware affiliate, you're like, okay, so give this guy 10,000 and I make 2 million. So win-win for you. So these are sort of the other types of content that you find there. A lot of pornography, not the topic of this podcast, but there's a lot of pornography, obviously. And other
credit
tools.
card information. New products on the roadmap. You know that there's a huge rise in fintech and remote banking services. So because they don't have a local office where they can check the subscribers' IDs, for instance, to know their customers, they're doing this remotely by employing various technologies built into a mobile app, where you'll have to take a screenshot of your ID and then wave your hand or face at the camera, and they will be able to match that your face is the one having that ID. Emerging products on these dark markets have the validation mechanism, screenshot and selfie of various ID and people generated by AI, but which are good enough to fool these know your customer services. So there's this huge explosion in offers of this service, which probably is related to the fact that there are teams of money laundering people building up for supporting different types of cybercrime.
Fascinating. So this is upcoming.
This is new, yes.
Okay.
Is the right deepfake domain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the work that you guys do at Bitdefender relates to what that you can share? Investigations pertaining to.
Most of the thing that we do is that in order to offer better protection to our customers and to have access to the most recent information that's being shared or discussed on the Darknet, is obviously that we crawl these websites ourselves in order to see, okay, if there's a discussion about a particular future attack, if there's a discussion about, I don't know, maybe cyber terrorism or some other thing that could be of interest for our customers, obviously, it's something that we need to do. So basically, we get all that data, we put it in the large database, we have machine learning algorithms that try to make sense of it. And from there, we can see, okay, so this is a ransomware website, this is a pornographic website, this is where they're trying to discuss about a new vulnerability. Let's make sure our product detect that vulnerability and that future exploit. So this is the work that we do. And sometimes when we have interesting information, we can also share it with law enforcement, help them out with their investigations.
On the non-forensic and more product-centric side, I would mention that the dark web is a huge repository of what we call records. Lines in a spreadsheet that tell pretty much everything about a person. Username, passwords, browsing history, medical records, you name it, they have it. And one of the things that's difficult to sort in the dark web is looking up for information, because there's no search engines for the dark web that are publicly available. And most of these records are being publicly traded between members of a Darknet community. Everybody inside that community knows about the existence of these records, but they're kind of out of the reach of the public. I wouldn't be able to tell if my data is being freely traded among cyber criminals. So what we are doing here is gathering these open source intelligence coming from the dark market, aggregating it into a discernible type of structure, let's say into a structured manner, and feeding it into digital identity products, for instance, that will notify people that their information is out there and is being traded by the exploits people.
If you don't mind, walk me through a day in a life of a researcher that investigates the field. Maybe Sylvia, if you want to cover that. How does a normal day look like for you?
Normal day at work?
Yeah.
Okay. So you start off by catching up with the trends and topics you're interested in. So starting to see what other researchers did while you were asleep, right? Catching up with the industry. We do sleep, but in shifts. Okay, so we're 24/7, follow the sun. So you catch up with whatever happened the day before. You try to put the dots together, see if it's something interesting to your investigations has come up, because you have multiple investigations ongoing, multiple actors you're trying to observe. And if they moved some needles, you need to follow along and see what happened there. With regards to Darknet, also trying to see if some new emerging vulnerabilities are out there. Some customers, VIP clients, are targeted in any way. We have automated systems for that, but you need to look and see if something is missing. And The fun part starts when you actually have found something you need to follow up on, and that's OSINT, what Bob was saying, trying to understand why are they selling access to that company? What happened there? Is that company exploited recently? Is there an employee which leaked his credentials? Is it a vulnerability in some VPN provider or some networking or an inside job? Yeah. So the interesting part starts when you have something to follow along, like a hound dog, like trying to see where the investigation leads you to. And that's basically how the day ends usually, because your wife calls like, get home. Ah, okay, sorry.
Get home by bread.
Yeah.
Do you have a Tor on your personal computer?
Oh yeah, of course. I have my Tor browser set up. I don't mix my personal life with my work life. Personal OPSEC, let's call it like that. It's an important factor for us in investigations. Although I am a bit more relaxed with the things that I'm doing on day-to-day work. Some other people really need to take care of their OPSEC. But I don't think do you want to do a podcast on OPSEC? Because there's like 1 hour.
It's a great idea, actually.
I think
it's
we should.
Great idea for the future, for a future
I think
episode.
we should definitely do that. Yeah, because clients can also use those operational security measures for themselves. Just mentioning cookies, ads, tracking you.
I think there's never enough education on, especially since it's such an evolving field. Even for us in the space, I don't think there's enough information to ever stay on top. So honestly, it's a great idea.
There is a Darknet Bible.
Okay.
No, seriously.
There's a Darknet Bible, which is free to read by anyone joining the Darknet.
So what's on it?
Everything you need to know to stay stealthy or private, to keep your privacy in that Darknet, because law enforcement will try to lure you out of the Darknet, try to expose you somehow. And the Darknet Bible...
If you're a criminal, not to...
If you're a criminal, of course. And the Darknet Bible shows you the measures you need to take to avoid those kinds of tricks and tactics from law enforcement.
I mean, it sounds like it's a tool that helps you really use the tool at the Bibles that
I also follow the Darknet Bible.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
I
like
think
you're using.
We had a very nice story about when you are trying to buy a wedding ring.
Oh yeah, I was trying to buy a wedding ring in secrecy.
At some point in life, we all have to do that, I guess.
And you know that whenever you search for a car in your home, when you search for a new car to buy, your wife already has news feed with cars on the
Sure.
news.
Everybody in the same household will get the same
So
ads.
everybody in the same household, yeah. So basically, that's what I was trying to avoid. Like, I'm trying to buy a wedding ring without my wife
suggesting,
knowing.
I'd like this one.
Note to self, this is how you actually can do holiday shopping or Christmas shopping or birthday shopping. Just follow the ads. Probably somebody in your household wants that thing.
Yeah, that's actually a smart advice, yeah. So I was trying to buy this wedding ring, and it turns out that the Darknet Bible is actually the way you need to go, because you use the Tor browser, you don't use any cookies. Basically, the sellers were confused about my identity. They didn't know who I am, because I was using all the techniques I needed to avoid pinpointing my address and making sure that my wife sees the ads. So I was trying to avoid that. So the Tor browser will fix that for you.
And did you go through it?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, everything's set up.
And she was surprised, probably.
I'm not looking for a new wedding ring. So
That's probably the best story out there. So it worked out. That's great. Okay, so yeah, I don't expect a larger number of casual internet users to just hop on Tor tomorrow because we're talking about it. But let's look a little more into why it's such a preferred place for criminals, and why it's so hard to
at this point, I think we should mention the hidden services, because we did discuss a little bit about them, but maybe define them a little bit. So this is why people say that the darknet is dark, actually, because of these hidden services, which are actually, again, legitimate in their purpose, initial purpose. If you're a whistleblower, just imagine it like this. If you're a whistleblower, you want a place to upload a photo of your president and have it online forever without the interference of the president, let's say. He cannot take it out if he wants to. So for this legitimate purpose, like a whistleblowing, you have these hidden services, which are places where you can do your business without anyone actually knowing where your service is located geographically on the planet. Other than that, on the ClearNet, everybody knows where Facebook is, where Google is. As a data center in Frankfurt, we know we can put our finger on it. That's where Google is.
With enough leverage, you can find where servers are being hosted, where people who access those servers live, and so on. So probably one of the most important differences is that, well, as Silvio said, when you have grounds for investigating something as law enforcement, you will be able to find the address where a specific photo lives, and you will be able to seize that server or take it down. Yeah, the Darknet doesn't want this kind of interaction with its services.
The Tor network has created this concept of a hidden service, which is basically a method of making sure that this server is anonymous and private, just like you as a person. The server is also anonymous and private. But the paradox here is that although it's anonymous, you can reach it. You don't know where it is, but you can go to it. And this is a technical challenge which I find interesting. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's a very elegant solution to that. But imagine like a spy movie where you need to meet up with a spy and exchange some stuff. You're not going to meet with him directly. You're going to leave it on a bench or some park somewhere, some park. You leave it there and then you let him know, I left a package for you there. And then you go away. And he comes and picks up the package. So this kind of communication happens between hidden services and clients, not really knowing exactly who your client is, but you're gonna take the packages, network packages, take them and then put them back in exchange. And that's like a relay node and an introduction point and stuff like this, which is happening there. A very elegant solution, which provides anonymity for the services.
Which is not possible on the clear web.
On the clear web, it's not possible because of the way our browsers work. They're meant to be easy to use and fast. Our browsers are beating in a contest like who's fastest. Well, the Tor browser is the slowest, but it's the safest and more private.
How slow? I mean, how slow are we talking here?
Seconds.
Okay.
Just seconds. Okay, so if it's gonna take you 0.4 seconds to reach Facebook, it's gonna take you 5 seconds to reach it via.
Because when we're talking about the speed on the internet, people assume it's the download speeds, but it's actually just how quickly the response time is.
The response time, yeah. But it's because you're traveling through different countries on the planet. Your packets are leaving from Europe to the United States, then maybe to Asia, and then coming back to you.
And putting some encryption on top of that as well.
Yeah, encryption, layered encryption. That's the onion part of it. It's an onion because it's layered encryption, one over the other.
I find it fascinating. It's something that I'd like to talk to you more about. And to my fortunate situation, I get to talk to you guys after we're doing this. So I'll be in a privilege.
So you need a wedding ring, okay?
Yes. No, that's taken care of. Thank you. But let's. I don't want to get too much into the details, but I'd like us to talk a little bit about some of the moments in the recent history when we, at Bitdefender have done work that related to the dark web and some investigations that we can talk about, or something that we want to take credit, that we took credit for, where we took down, or we didn't take down per se.
We can't take down anything ourselves.
Law enforcement took down, different markets, but we had a contribution in it. And I'd like us to talk a little bit about how that worked out.
Yeah, there are a few hidden services, namely dark markets, that Bitdefender assisted into offering technical intelligence to law enforcement, which later on led to the seizing of those servers. I think I can mention the Hansa market, which at that point, when it was taken down in 2017,
I think so.
Maybe, it was the second most used. The third most used dark market back then. There was the first one was Alphabay, which is taken down by the FBI. The second one was Dream Market, and the third one was Hansa.
And this is mostly drugs, right?
Yeah, mostly drugs. And there was an interesting experiment that happened there. Is that the FBI closed Alphabay, which was like the biggest. And all the people that were, selling and buying there, they moved to Hansa. And you may ask, okay, but why do they move to the third market and not to the second? Well, money. The commission for every transaction was higher on Dream Market compared to Hansa. So that's why they all migrated there. And the Dutch authorities managed to find the location of the server, seize the server.
How do you find the location of the server on the dark?
It's a combination of many things. I mean, there are a few techniques that's already public on the web. So if you read the Darknet Bible, you'll know how to set up your hidden service in a safe manner. But you have to think that the people that manage these hidden services, because a hidden service is basically a website. Then on top of it, you add all the Tor stuff.
Right.
Okay? So it will work only on Tor.
Encryption, relaying.
Exactly. That comes as given. You just have to build a website. But programmers that build these websites are human beings. Sometimes they write very beautiful code. Sometimes they make minor mistakes.
Funny thing is that both the client and the server are connected to the internet, to the normal internet that we are using to communicate, right? The whole thing is that on top of the internet protocol, there's these hidden services that do the information handling. So to some extent, the hidden service communicates to the internet. And if it's not correctly anonymized to disallow fingerprinting from the internet, you could technically search for a specific icon to see where it shows up on the internet. And if the hidden service is not set up correctly, it will leak information to the internet, where it can be de-anonymized from, and the internet service provider could be forced into disclosing who has that IP address at home.
And sometimes it can be even easier. Like one of the people working there gets upset with his colleagues, and he puts that available on the internet. So if you crawl the internet often enough,
Right.
you'll see it.
Insider threat.
Insider criminal infrastructure.
Referring to your Hansa takedown, I read last year an interesting article a research did on the Bitcoin transactions happening across all dark markets for a period of, I think, 10 years.
Oh, nice.
They did a really interesting research on 10 years of cryptocurrency trading amongst dark markets. And then a Hansa takedown happens along with Alphabay. So that's operation, I don't know the name right now. That operation, when it took place, every seller stopped working with any other seller. If before this moment, the sellers from the markets were trading with each other, I'll take your weed and I'll sell it on this side, and you take my cocaine and put it there, and we'll work together to make a good profit. After the takedown, no seller trusted any other seller. So every communication between them stopped. But you know what the only constant thing was? The buyers. The buyers didn't care, man. Whatever platform was there, were still 300 people searching for drugs. So
just get me my mushrooms.
just get me my stuff, right? So the buyers were the actual people who kept the ecosystem going after the takedown, because the sellers were a little bit disgruntled, let's say.
Yeah, back then there's like top first market and third market being taken down. That was, a very noisy takedown in the, darknet infrastructure. And then we've seen for a few more years that instead of vendors going to a market that's well established and doing their business there, because they were thinking that, okay, so police is doing this, if I go to this market and the market grows in popularity, it's going to draw attention. So they started to have their mini markets, like personal individual shops. But, a thing that we missed on saying is that when you create a hidden service, basically that hidden service, but the thing you install in your computer will also generate the link to the service, right? Which is not something like Facebook.com or Catalin.com. It's a series of words, of letters and numbers that doesn't really make sense. Okay, so it gives you that link, and that service can be accessed only by the people that know that link. So if you want to do business, if you want to invite people to your shop, you need to
Somehow advertise.
advertise that link, which this job is usually taken care of when you go to a well-established market. They're doing their own promotion. So basically, you just create an account there and you start selling. When you have to do your own promotion, things get really complicated and it's really not working out. So that's why 2 or 3 years after, markets appeared again in the same sense as before.
So, I mean, it's obvious to you, but it's basically a market on the Darknet. It's similar to your Amazon. You just go there. There's sellers and there's photos of the merchandise and there's reviews and people who are happy or unhappy with the stuff and the price and delivery and this and that. And
to your point, to go further into that, besides the things that you can deliver at home, you also have the thing called dead drops, which means they'll leave it somewhere.
like in a forest.
Like in a forest, on the second bench on the right.
Right.
They tell you, you go and pick it up. So
They're going to give you the GPS coordinates. That's something Hydra put in place. It was very popular in Russia, but it got taken down. Hydra is offline now.
Yeah, now you imagine that you're giving your home address to cyber criminals, right? That's not a very good perspective.
Yeah, people do weird things. So I'm trying to imagine, and this is, you're going to help me hopefully demystify some of the, say cryptocurrency myths here, if there's any left. So obviously the currency of choice is cryptocurrency to transact on the darknet. So how much I'm sure a lot of people want to know how much of all transactions of cryptocurrency are legitimate and how much is just supply and demand of the dark.
So if a priest is the one that's quoting the Bible, how do you call the one quoting the Darknet Bible? Because the Darknet Bible says clearly that do not buy Bitcoin, do not use Bitcoin. Bitcoin is trackable, traceable, and seen by law enforcement. So,
but
that's a big.
The lore has it that it's, you can see the wallets, but you don't know who's behind the wallets. So
exactly as you put it, you can see the wallets, you can see the numbers,
transactions and everything,
but you don't know
who owns the wallet.
Just like you see a car plate number, but you don't know who's the actual owner of the car. But if you stay around near the car for enough time, you're going to see who's going to get in the car.
Yeah.
So at some point, they will have to make some mistake, maybe.
I think there's been some sort of research. I remember reading it, but I do not remember the exact amount. But I think it was, in terms of criminal part, would be like 2%, less than 2% of the total transactions.
Gotcha.
So the rest is
what's the
legitimate.
Well, I mean, sure, yeah.
It's money is money laundering, or I mean,
money laundering is illegitimate, but it's not necessarily something that happens on the darknet. So let's not assume that. I'm thinking,
well, it is.
Well, of course, but it's not limited there.
I guess that one of the most reliable metrics would be how much Bitcoin has the FBI seized throughout the years.
Sure, that's an interesting number. Let's go,
whenever they successfully take down an operation and they get access to the operator's computer, for instance, they will have access to pages that the user has logged in. They will have access to stuff like wallets and pretty much everything that's running unencrypted in RAM. That's why they're so quick to prevent the operating from closing the lid of the laptop when they break in on them. So I'm not sure how much Bitcoin has the FBI at this point seized into their wallets, but it used to be an impressive sum back in the days when consumer ransomware was a thing.
What does FBI or other agencies do with this?
They don't keep it for themselves. Unfortunately, I don't think the agents get any share of that.
No, I don't mean the agents, but like, can they?
That would be interesting.
Technically, they block it, and I would say that this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that cyber criminals do not reap the rewards of running the illegal operations, but at the same time, like, taking out a significant chunk of Bitcoin, which is limited by the algorithm, right? It's a non-inflationary currency. That means that it's available in a fixed amount. That only increases the value of the remaining Bitcoin in circulation.
So what's the official currency of the darknet?
It's still Bitcoin. It's still Bitcoin. And even though Monero has a lot higher privacy mechanisms, I think, so actually it's a personal opinion, it's not validated. I think that Bitcoin is still most used is because a lot of the code that's being written for Bitcoin transactions is being reused. So it's easier to find code that's for Bitcoin, just copy or paste it in your website, you're good to go.
Insta shopping cart.
So if I want to start a business on
Also
the
for the clients, you should consider the clients like us trying to find drugs, right?
Yep.
We also
Not like us.
get our hands
I don't speak
easier
for
on
yourself.
Bitcoin, right?
But so if I want to start you're going to refer me to the Bible, but if I want to start a business on the dark web today, am I late to the party?
No.
Am I good? Like, is it
Fresh, yeah.
so? What's your prognosis?
Reputation. Reputation is everything in the darknet. Your reputation precedes you. So if you do something bad, you need to change everything about you and start over, like rebranding.
Which in real life you can't, but on Darknet
Interesting.
you can.
Yeah, your reputation is something that gets the buyers to actually send the funds to you. And
So-
this should also get us to escrow as well, because how do you buy 10 grams of cocaine, which is, I don't know how much, but let's say it's $1,000. Do I just send you $1,000 and pray that that's cocaine and not something else? So you have an escrow account where you leave the money until you get the product, test the product, and if you're happy, you release the money to the vendor. So, or you can make a dispute with the vendor saying that I'm not happy with the product. So that's a bad rep for the vendor, which is bad for business. So he'll usually go in your favor, like, okay, I'm sorry, but can we just leave it like
That's
that?
actually a very cool thing, because I did a similar talk a couple of days ago with a news outlet, and they were asking the same thing. What's the next thing that the dark markets are better at than traditional markets?
Yeah.
And I was like, the reviewing process is pretty straightforward. Because there's no honor among criminals, everybody would need to prove themselves that they're okay. And they have technical support that sometimes surpasses the technical support offered by legitimate markets. They have expedited shipping, which is normally better than traditional markets. And they have these escrow accounts that make sure that everybody does their part in the transactions. So there's no way you would be conned into sending money and not receiving your goods.
Is there loyalty programs like, you buy from this market and they give you discounts next time or something like
you're
that?
going to
You will have Black Fridays
to
and
get your fix from the vendor that you've already done business with, because you know that their merchandise is good and their service is amazing, and you will start recommending them not only to other people within the community by leaving a good review, but you'll also probably break the news to your friends that you know a good place where to get your wear from.
And this is not like the, real life where you walk to a store, you maybe meet the owner, you'll put a face with a name, and they'll go like, hey, yeah, John's a great guy, I know him personally, he has a nice mustache and all this stuff. You'll never know who's behind these stores. We call them stores, right?
the closest you get to that is that some vendors are active on multiple markets. They have a way to prove that it's the same person
Okay.
with public and private cryptography. So basically, when they introduce themselves on a new market, they say like, hey, I'm also on that and that and that. So he's trustworthy. And he also refers to, here I only have like one review because I recently joined this market. But if you look at the others, you can see all the reviews I have there.
Right.
So that's the closest you get to
Gotcha.
that.
So if you could choose, what would you like to take off of the darknet and bring it onto the clear web and vice versa?
Nice question.
I would say that the quality of service.
Yeah, and that as well. Reputation.
These operators struggle to give their best to the customers because they have significant competition, because probably they're working in a very stressful environment where reputation is everything, and probably there's police officers lurking into their services. There's companies, cybersecurity companies that are probing their infrastructure every single day to find out weak spots to exploit. Right? You don't see SQL injections or you rarely see SQL injections into dark markets. You rarely see stuff not working because, hey, it's Black Friday and everybody's DDoSing organically the market. No, they're always operational, they're always running, they're always available. They have multiple payment mechanisms. They offer escrow. They care about the reputation of the seller and the buyer, and they will try to loyalize you. While at this point, if you look at how regular supermarket stores, web stores do business, you can barely reach customer service. Good luck with that.
Yeah, you'll probably talk to a chatbot, right? Mm-hmm. So that being said, I want to thank you for the work you do for the industry and to safeguard the people who are ultimately getting scammed by using these tools. Thank you for the time and the knowledge you chose to share. And I know we could keep going. There's the bounty of information that's available.
And we haven't even touched the. No, okay.
We've not even. And I will take you, Silvio, on the offer to join us on the next episode and talk about more. But again, thanks so much for the time and the knowledge you brought into the very unknown conversation and matter for a lot of our even customers and friends. So that being said, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks everybody for joining in.